Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, my name is Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. Before I get started, I would like to thank Prototype Prime for this amazing podcast space. This is Season 2, all about hiring, and I am joined by my co-host, Annelle Barnett.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So, the topic of today is qualifying questions. So, Annelle, let's talk a little bit about qualifying questions. What kind of questions are we asking during the interview process and why?
Well, I'll start with the why. Part of what you want to do in an interview is obviously qualify candidates based on several different characteristics. One of the things that I really focus on is the skills, and to make sure that they know what they say that they know, and also that their definition of a term is the same as my definition of a term, and to make sure that those things align. So as an example, with digital marketing candidates, I very often ask all of them if they have any experience with marketing automation platforms. The reason I ask that is not necessarily because that's part of every digital marketing job, but if they don't even know what marketing automation is, or marketing any of the marketing automation platforms, then they likely are not at the top of their game as far as digital marketing is concerned. So it very quickly weeds people out. And I ask that question additionally because sometimes the answer is, sure, I automate marketing all the time. and that is also very telling of their ability to be a good digital marketer, I guess.
Gotcha. And you have skills questions. We have culture and personality questions. So what we try to do is overlap the skills questions that you have about marketing automation and the things that you find in the marketing space with the culture questions, and then personality assessment, questions around their personality and whether they're a match. So for the culture questions, we've gone over those pretty extensively in Season 1. But just to highlight again, the culture questions are a question that will filter a candidate based on whether they match your company culture. So an example would be, let's take Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is known for servant leadership. So how do you find out if somebody interviewing shows signs of servant leadership, that they give back? Well, one way we can do that during the interview process is ask a culture question like, do you volunteer your time? And if they say no, well, then they're not giving back, at least in that way. That may be, the first points off from that interview process. If they say yes, we have to dig deeper, right? We have to qualify, just like you said, on the marketing automation. We have to go a little further and say, okay, well, where do you volunteer? How much time do you spend there? Tell me a little bit about it. Now, from that, we're kind of extrapolating out whether or not we think this person, or Chick-fil-A in this case, would, be qualifying for a servant leader to be in their organization. So that's an example of a culture question, something that is built into that person, how they work, how they operate, and does it match the culture of the organization?
Right.
And then the second one we have that we add in is the personality assessment. So a lot of times we actually have all this data out there around personalities to know if the person's personality actually matches the role that they're in.
Right.
So like in the marketing space, we know that these are usually engaged, expressive people that are those frontline marketers that are bringing all these awesome campaigns and content together. They like interacting with people. And there's a certain profile around that that is either a good fit for the role and the organization, or is not necessarily a match. So we can look at the personality and the data and the benchmarks that are out there to say, is this person a good fit as a social marketer, or are they more of an analytical marketer that are diving down into the details of those campaigns?
Right. Yeah, and to take all of this a step further, I guess, because we've talked about skills and culture and personality, you can also use some of these qualifying questions to understand the relationships with other team members in other departments. For example, sales and marketing are either very strongly aligned or very strongly opposed in a lot of organizations. And so if you ask basic questions like, in past roles, what has your relationship been with sales? That's a totally open-ended question, and it allows someone to give you their real feelings about how they perceive sales. So that's going to go in one or another direction, and it's either going to be like sales and marketing are fantastic. They align perfectly. We're in sync on everything. We have established our, sales qualifying leads and our marketing qualified leads, and we agree on what those are, et cetera. Or it's going to be sales is the thorn in my side, right. And we do not work well together, and it's always a struggle. And that's very telling for an organization and very telling for a marketing team, especially if sales and marketing are going to work very closely together, which is often the case. And that's actually how you're going to have a really successful sales and marketing program, is if those two teams align. So having the opportunity to ask that one question can really tell you about this person and if they're going to be a good fit in your organization.
Yeah, I love that question because, when you think about it, the company, like you said, is like account-based marketing. They have it all together. They're very aligned. They know which target audience they're going after, or, it's that thorn in the side. And you wouldn't want to take somebody who has kind of this opposing view and put them in the alternate organization as a new hire, because immediately that belief system is probably going to cause a lot of cultural tension.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And they're going to bring that belief system with them, which is not gonna turn out well, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we always talk about, it's not that one or the other is really wrong.
Right.
It's not that one is bad or good, at least as far as we're concerned from culture and personality matching. You may have other stronger opinions about account-based marketing organizations versus,
right.
Sales and marketing alignment and things like that. But overall, neither is right or wrong from a cultural basis. It's more of how does the person match the company culture and fit in, along with their skills, their personality, and any of the other attributes that you want to put into place to make sure that they're going to be successful in the organization.
Yeah, definitely. To add some other filtering questions, I guess, another question that you can add is what type of marketer are you? Because as I mentioned before, there are obviously digital marketers, and then there's more traditional marketers, and then there's more of the marketing communications or just straight communications types of roles. And so sometimes, again, people's definitions of things are different, and so if you ask if they're, if you leave it open-ended and ask them what type they are, then they will often tell you whether they really are the fit for this particular position or not by their answer. So.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great topic that we haven't really covered as much on the show is understanding what somebody's definition is during the process and
right.
making sure that it's aligned. Because I know I have the same thing with, my past experience with developers. I get a developer in and they say, well, I'm a senior developer. Like, okay, well, what does that mean?
Right.
How do you quantify senior? And what I sat down and wrote up as what I consider a senior developer and what I see out there, there's generally a big mismatch.
Right.
My expectations are fundamentally different in very different ways than that of somebody who, says they're a senior developer. A lot of times I find that, those senior roles come with some sort of years of experience
right,
type
exactly.
of thing. And I'm like, well,
right.
more years in an industry doesn't necessarily mean results, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean that somebody's really good at it or better than somebody else.
Right.
There's lots of other factors that come into play there.
Yeah. And interestingly, I'll see it on resumes or cover letters and things like that, where someone says that they're a senior marketer, but they're 2 years out of college. So
right.
I suppose it can happen because they could gain experience in college as well. But it's often a person 2 years out of college is often not going to be senior.
Right. Not quite the senior marketer
Right,
that
exactly.
you would expect. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think this has been amazing talking about some qualifying questions. So we would like for you to think about the qualifying questions that you're going through on 3 different levels. So first level is culture match. Second is skills. And lastly is the personality assessment and making sure that their personality aligns with your organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.